Hello, and welcome to the Dollars and Donuts presentation on state school aid. My name is Ron Robinson, Senior Legislative Analyst for the Legislative Services Agency, LSA, Fiscal Services Division. The time of the presentation is limited to 20 minutes, so I only cover the high points, and more information is available in the document. The focus of the presentation is on the school aid funding formula, with some context related to the current fiscal year 2024. The governor's recommendation for supplemental state aid and education savings accounts will be touched upon, and the governor's recommendation for area education agencies, AEAs, will not be covered in the presentation. The LSA also has other products that you may find informative. Analysis of the governor's budget recommendations, the Education Appropriations Subcommittee Blue Book, a one-page table on the governor's budget recommendation for supplemental aid, fiscal topics, fact book maps, fiscal research briefs, including one on the AEAs. Today's presentation will cover the following: a review of the roles of the LSA, Department of Education, Department of Management, Department of Revenue, Iowa Legislature, School Budget Review Committee, SBRC, and the federal government. The presentation will also review how schools are funded, the goals and history of the school aid formula, how the school aid formula works and the various components of the formula, historical state percent of growth, the role of the state cost per pupil and the district cost per pupil. Much of the time will be used to review how state funding and property tax combine to support a school budget's district's regular program cost. Categorical and AE funding will also be covered, spending authority versus cash on hand, additional levy components, discretionary levies, instructional support program, property tax relief, transportation equity fund, and the governor's recommendation. Page 2. The LSA provides nonpartisan fiscal estimates of proposed legislation, including impact at the school district level. The LSA provides historical data at the state and school districts level, and the LSA models the school aid and levy formula, including state and property tax implications. Page 3. For fiscal year 2024, the budget enrollment is over 486,000 and is based on October of 2022. Count for the 325 school districts and 9 AEAs. This is a decrease of 2 districts related to the consolidation of Laverne and Algona into the Algona and Prairie Valley, and Southeast Webster Grand consolidation into Southeast Valley. Page 4. Multiple entities are involved in financing schools in Iowa. There's the Department of Education that provides oversight of school district finances, makes certain payments such as state aid to school districts, and conducts fiscal reviews. The Department of Management calculates state aid and property tax, certifies property taxes, and collects property valuations. The Department of Revenue collects income surtax and collects state sales tax. The Iowa Legislature establishes the means through which public schools are financed, determines how the funding mechanisms may change, determines how much the state provides in funding. The School Budget Review Committee provides for unique and unusual circumstances that cannot be easily or timely handled through legislation, and considers requests for modified supplemental amounts, MSAs. The federal government provides targeted funds to address specific educational needs. Page 5. Schools are funded by a combination of state aid, property taxes, income surtax, Secure and Advanced Vision for Education, SAVE, which is the penny sales tax, federal funds, and miscellaneous income. Total state aid for fiscal year 2024 is estimated to be $3.7 billion and an estimated $1.7 billion from property tax. As far as the state general fund is concerned, school aid uses approximately 42.9% of all general fund appropriations. Page 6. School aid goals directly from the Iowa Code. Equalize educational opportunity, provide good education for all Iowa children, provide property tax relief, decrease percentage of school costs paid from property taxes, and provide reasonable control of school costs. Page 7. Prior to the 1970s, school districts were funded primarily through property tax. In the early 1970s, a foundation plan increased state aid to schools and included a uniform levy, state foundation base, maximum on each district budget, and leveling up low-spending districts to a minimum cost per pupil. Effective in fiscal year 1992, enacted in 1989, the school foundation aid formula was repealed, and the school aid financial formula was modified with the enactment of Iowa Code Chapter 257. The state percent of growth became a legislative action versus economic growth factors. Foundation level was set at 83.5% and now 88.4% beginning with fiscal year 2023. And also an instructional support program was established. Page 8. School aid calculations start with enrollment. This is base enrollment, which is the count of the students October 1, plus additional weighting to get the weighted enrollment. This is used to calculate different components of funding and property tax relief. Special education has additional weighting based on the level of need of the pupil. Special education weighting is reviewed by the SBRC every odd year. Page 9. Other supplementary weightings include English language learners, sharing, at-risk formula, and reorganization incentives. For additional information on this, you may be interested in an issue review called School Aid Supplementary Weightings. Page 10. The minimum state cost per pupil increased to $7,635 for fiscal year 2024 from $7,413 for fiscal year 2023. This is an increase of $222. The minimum spending limit per pupil for each school district is called the State Cost Per Pupil, SCPP. The state cost per pupil works to calculate state foundation aid. The governor recommends, and the Iowa legislature may establish, a new state cost per pupil for the next fiscal year. The amount of growth is called Supplemental State Aid, SSA. The rate of growth is called the state percent of growth. A 2.50% increase for fiscal year 2025 would result in an increase of an estimated $191. In fiscal year 2024, the General Assembly maintained the same state cost per pupil per student separate from the SSA. The General Assembly did not add any additional dollars to the state cost per pupil above the SSA generated by the state percentage of growth. The added dollars are a way to bring up the school districts with a lower district cost per pupil to bring the funding closer to those districts with a higher district cost per pupil. Page 11 displays the history of the state percent of growth, and this has ranged from a low of 0% to 4%. Page 12, the district cost per pupil and the highest district cost per pupil is $140 above the state cost per pupil. A school district's funding is primarily calculated by pupil count and the district's cost per pupil, which increases each year by the SSA per pupil amount. Fewer than half of the school districts in Iowa have a district cost per pupil higher than the state cost per pupil. The different dates to the origination of the school aid formula from the 1970s. For information additional to this, you may like to review a fiscal topic called School Aid, District Cost per Pupil between School Districts. Page 13 displays that regular program district cost is weighted enrollment times the district cost per pupil. Page 14 goes over the combined district cost and the additional funding provided to school districts for categoricals, AEAs, and 4-year-old volunteer preschool. Page 15. Spending authority controls the maximum each district can spend out of its general fund per fiscal year. Please do not get this confused with the state general fund. Spending from a district's general fund is controlled by how much spending authority a district has, not its cash on hand. It does not matter how much you have in the bank. You can only spend up to your spending authority. Page 16. The state cost per pupil is established as specified above. That amount is broken down into two segments. The first is the foundation level, and this is equal to 88.4% of the state cost per pupil. The foundation level is made up of two parts. The first is the uniform levy, which is $5.40 per $1,000 of taxable value of real property. State aid then fills the foundation level until it reaches 88.4% of the state cost per pupil. The remaining 11.6% is called the additional levy and can be funded with a combination of property tax and state dollars. Page 17. While the tax rate is uniform, the amount generated per pupil will vary by the taxable valuation per pupil in the district. A property-rich district will generate more dollars through the uniform levy than a property-poor district. This means property-rich districts will receive fewer state dollars to fill the 88.4% foundation level and contribute more uniform levy dollars to the state cost per pupil. Page 18 provides a comparison between the funding for property-poor and property-rich districts. Page 19. While the dollars needed to fill the 88.4% foundation level are the same, the additional levy rate is not uniform. The rate of the additional levy may vary from district to district, depending upon the taxable valuation per pupil. Also, if the district's district cost per pupil is higher than the state cost per pupil, the district will levy for the additional authorized spending authority. Page 20. Special education is funded by a mix of state aid and additional levy, while preschool and categoricals are funded solely by state aid. AEA services are funded by a combination of state aid and the additional levy. Page 21. Major factors that influence the additional levy property tax rates include taxable valuations and the number of students within a school district, the amount needed for discretionary programs funded by the additional levy. For additional information on this, you may want to review the fiscal topic, School Aid Additional Levy Components. The chart provides information on the district's maximum and minimum tax rate for each levy and the number of districts that utilize each levy. Page 22 provides information on discretionary levies. The district's total tax levy rate may include other levies. The Iowa Code specifies how the funds from discretionary levies can be spent, and levies do not increase a district's spending authority except the instructional support program. Page 23, the Instructional Support Program. A district may increase its budget by 10% of its regular program cost for any general fund purpose. Funded from property tax or combination of property taxes and income tax. The current law provides state aid for property tax equity. However, this has not been funded since fiscal year 2012. For more information, you may want to see the fiscal topic on School Aid Instructional Support Program. Page 24, Property Tax Relief. Property Tax Adjustment Aid 1992 provides an estimated $6.8 million for fiscal year 2024. The Property Tax Replacement Payment, PTRP, provides an estimated $114.8 million for fiscal year 2024. Adjusted Additional Property Tax Levy Aid provides an estimated $49.3 million for fiscal year 2024. For additional information on this, you may want to see the Fact Book Map, Total Property Tax Relief Aid Rate Reduction by School District. When you review information on property tax relief, you may want to note that some numbers may vary because of the timing of the publication from one publication to the next. Page 25. The Property Tax Adjustment Aid 1992 is being phased out as the taxable value of properties in a district increases, this payment decreases. In fiscal year 2024, 277 districts received funding. Page 26, Property Tax Replacement Payment, PTRP. The funding covers the increase in the foundation level resulting from the state percent of growth if the funding is authorized for the year, which it has been since it was implemented. Page 27. Adjusted Additional Property Tax Levy Aid for fiscal year 2024. Funding includes a $24 million general fund appropriation built into the school aid formula and 5.1%, equivalent to $31.1 million, of the total amount collected from the Secure and Advanced Vision for Education SAVE Fund and deposited into the Property Tax Equity and Relief PTER Fund. The fiscal year 2021 allocation to the Foundation-Based Supplement, FBSF, first impacted state school aid in fiscal year 2023. Due to timing issues, the funding is provided in the fiscal year after the amount is determined. For example, the sales and use tax revenue from fiscal year 2023 are determined in November following the fiscal year, and the calculated amount is distributed in fiscal year 2025. The distribution is 2 years after the collection. The SAVE Fund portion increases by formula when growth conditions are met. The percent allocation is projected to be the same in fiscal year 2025 and fiscal year 2026 at 6.1%. Page 28. Transportation Equity Fund was created in the 2018 legislative session to provide additional funding to school districts for public school transportation costs that exceed the statewide adjusted average cost per student. The governor is recommending $31.1 million in a general fund appropriation to the Transportation Equity Fund for fiscal year 2025. This is based on a 2.5% growth rate. The code requires the funding to increase at the same rate of growth that is established for categorical funding. For more information, please see the fiscal topic, Transportation Equity Fund. Page 29, State Foundation School Aid Governor's Recommendation. The Governor is recommending an estimated general fund appropriation of $3.73 billion for state aid to schools in fiscal year 2025. This is an increase of $62.3 million compared to estimated fiscal year 2024. The amount is intended to reflect a supplemental state aid percent of growth rate of 2.5% and includes a $35.1 million reduction to the AAs, which is in addition to the statutory reduction of $7.5 million currently specified in the Iowa Code. The state cost per pupil would be $7,826, an increase of $191 compared to the current year. The amount reflects a transfer from the Economic Emergency Fund of $21.9 million for fiscal year 2025, the same as fiscal year 2024. The amount also reflects a reauthorization and adjustment to the PTRP funding, which is estimated to increase from $201 to $223 per pupil. Page 30, Education Savings Accounts, ESAs. As enacted during the 2023 legislative session, House File 68, Education Savings Accounts Act, provided a new standing unlimited general fund appropriation for an ESA fund under the control of the Department of Education, beginning in fiscal year 2024 in modified school district categorical funding supplements. The governor is recommending an estimated general fund appropriation of $179.2 million for ESAs in fiscal year 2025, an increase of $51.3 million compared to estimated 2024. The amount is intended to reflect a supplemental state aid percent of growth rate of 2.5%. The amount also reflects ESA accounts increasing from an estimated 16,757 in fiscal year 2024 to 22,897 in fiscal year 2025, an increase of 6,140 ESAs. Page 31. To summarize, state aid for schools was established in the early 1970s and last substantially updated in the early 1990s. Funding for school districts through the school budget aid and levy is primarily enrollment driven. The governor recommends, and the Iowa legislature may establish a new state cost per pupil for the next fiscal year. About 70% of a school district's general fund budget is calculated by using the district cost per pupil times the weighted enrollment. Three components that fund a district's combined district cost: uniform levy, state aid, and the additional levy. Three additional elements of state aid through property tax relief: property tax adjustment aid, property tax replacement payment, and adjusted additional property tax levy aid. Thank you very much for showing your interest in this topic. Thank you for your time.